Today our topic is gender.
And the question we're going to be researching is, how does gender affect the experiences of children in the family?
Distinguished sociologists and Oakley believe that all children are socialized into conforming to their own negative gender roles that contributed to an overall negative childhood
experiences. Yeah, miss.
Yeah, personal experiences. Okay.
Like how you're raised, or like if you have a kid, how the kids, like how it affects anything,
Miss, and like say how you grew up, whether whether there was like gender inequality in your household or anything like that.
All right. Yes, I would say, I guess everyone from my generation must have faced this issue. As we know, in the country that we come from, a male child is always given a priority. So we all grew up. My generation grew up with the notion that yes, boys are more important than girls. But fortunately, I belong to a family where we were 4 siblings, 2 elder brothers. I was the third one, and I have a younger sister. Though at some point we did, and we still have a fight with my mother over that you always preferred boys over girls. But when it came to taking up education, my parents were like, all my kids will get equal education. They can go as far as they want to, take a complete and achieve whatever they want. So I was permitted to take up double post graduation. I was also allowed to go take up a course which during my times was not permitted for girls. But I took up interior designing and decoration. I did in commercial arts and all that. My sister is a chartered accountant. So my times, yes. But then when I see my friends my classmates and my friends from the neighboring houses, they were not allowed to complete even graduation. They looked for the most appropriate alliance and they got them married, and the sole purpose was to bear kids, which they are doing. And surprisingly, many of my friends kids are about the marriageable age, so they got married that young. They were just say 18, 19 then. As we grew up, somewhere I had made up my mind that whenever I have the opportunity to become a mother, and if given a choice, I would want to be the mother to a daughter. And with God's grace, I have a daughter. So probably if I look at it, maybe that the differences that we have faced as kids, that lingers around in our mind, and that pushes us to give equal opportunities to both the genders during these times. Right. Just to fill up the gap, like when I got married, I noticed that the situation was not so in my husband's house. In my husband's house, the daughter is given more importance than the sons. Okay, just filling up the gap. So yes, that is where I think we grew up knowing that men are more important or boys are more important. But with the what is that, with the education that we took up, and with seeing the world around, we realize that it's not so. Both the genders can be treated equally well.
Okay, miss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, miss.
Welcome. Can I leave the call?
Yes.
Yeah, miss. Thank you for your time.
All the best. Enjoy. Yes,
Bye,
all the
miss.
best. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye,
Yes,
miss. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. So today I'm joined with Yusha, Danya, and Ahmad. Unfortunately, Michelle couldn't be a part of the meeting today, but she's going to be contributing to the project. Our question for discussion will be, how does gender affect the experiences of children in the family? And we're going to start off our discussion with Yusha.
Yeah, so basically when you talk about gender roles in general, I would say it basically all of us have been socialized since when we have been babies, with the idea that men are supposed to be the breadwinners of the family, like they earn the income, and they should be treated like royalty, whereas the girls and the women have to do nothing but the housework and take care of the children and actually give birth to children. And it's been like this for a very long time in most societies. We have been seeing things change slightly, but not enough.
Yeah, to further second Yusha's point, I believe that gender roles are influenced by the media or like traditional families, environments, and societies in general. In addition to like biological like reasons, women women are often used as the reproduction factor of the family. They don't and they stay and they're expected to stay home and tend to the family's emotional needs. Whereas, however, in a progressive society as we live in right now, I think these roles have changed. There's been a lot of diversity due to the rise of feminism and feminist ideas. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree because we are assigned with these stereotypical gender roles, and these are like mostly influenced by culture and the society that we live in. For example, like traditional societies in Pakistan, the biggest stereotype is that women are only the reproduction factor, as he said, and most functionalists also think that that is basically the only factor that a woman plays into a family, along with raising the children. Um, and that's why they like encourage nuclear families because they don't want any different roles because they believe it affects the way a society runs.
Yeah, so I agree with everyone here. And I think that from a very young age, we're taught that boys and girls are very different, and we have different ways of speaking, dressing, grooming. Even I think from the toys we used to play when we were younger, say girls always used to have Barbies and dolls and play with like makeup and play dress up. As for boys, they were encouraged to play with sports, and I think a lot of like cars. And so yeah, so from a young age it would be um unusual to see a boy with a Barbie doll, and a girl playing with like cars, or like playing rough, playing with a ball. So I feel like that's the way I was brought up, to be very feminine. And yeah.
Also, there's since the rise of same-sex families, etc. Like I think there's statistically proven that there are more gay than lesbian marriages around the world. So with the increase of gay marriages, there's been like a change of roles with the kids. Like I think boys are now more into more feminine types of clothing per se. There's a lot of diversity in fashion industries and media. Men are more like children now actually growing up boys are now more like in touch with their feminine side. They tend to dabble into more feminine areas and stuff. So there is one impact that gender has on, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, like I completely agree with you. In fact, there's a sociologist called Judith Butler, and she has this theory called gender performativity, where she basically says that gender is our social identity, which it is, but we do tend to internalize some of the social expectations because we have been socialized to think about these typical gender roles from when we were very young. But after we reach a certain age, we're just so used to these social expectations that people don't even need to remind us anymore. We just tend to internalize them. So that's basically what her theory was. I just thought it was something really interesting.
Okay, so there's also in not to stereotype, but in nations like India or Sri Lanka or South Asian countries in general, I think women have been kept at such a low standards. The the low status that they're given is a root of their limited autonomy and their denial of rights of health. Because many villages or areas or societies basically in these South Asian countries tend to give women like less priority in terms of healthcare, etc. And then this therefore like affects the children because if a woman decides to rise up and like suppose abandon a bad marriage, and they tend to be a single parent family, they would not be able to provide all services to their children because they'd have such limited opportunities. So this affects the overall child's experience. They can't exactly experience what a normal nuclear family would have, or what a standard family would have. This would have, like, an impact on their whole perception of life, I guess.
Yeah, I think, and even like in, say, in like South Asia, women weren't, in certain countries, women weren't really allowed to get proper education till maybe a few years ago, when the rules really changed. So I feel like, um yeah, so that, like, so the women really were supposed to, do household labor and take care of their husbands, their fathers, their brothers, and they weren't really taken to do any of the decision making in the family. So it was kind of like women were pushed back, and they weren't really important, and they weren't given many, responsibilities that men were given because of tradition and culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
mean,
that's why feminists also like find that this is an like oppressive ideology because they think that this discourages women from speaking out about like domestic violence or abuse in a marriage, and it kind of keeps them in like a toxic household because their fear of what society like is going to think of them or reject the idea of a divorce from a female side is another thing because mostly it was like less frowned upon for a man to divorce a woman than a woman to divorce a man. And that's why like most feminists think that this is like an oppressive ideology, and that the like rise of different types of families has actually like freed them from that stereotype. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I really like the points that you guys brought up about South Asian nations especially, and how women aren't being given the same rights as men. Like, even if you look at current events, for example, there were so many rape cases in India because, I mean, they were using women for their bodies, and women, they were denied basic rights, and they didn't even have consent, and that just shows what rights women actually have in society. Like, people may think we're progressing, but in reality, we're just taking a step backward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to add on to Yusha's example, I think there's a village in India where rape is consensual, I think, apparently, and it's allowed. So this would, like, let's say a girl from the family of a family would have to have like a lot more, would have a very dark perception of the world, because if they're raised into a society or raised into a
Mhm.
place where rape is consensual, something that's so horrid is like allowed over there, it would just change them and maybe even damage them mentally and physically, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that also plays into like how exactly like gender discrimination plays a role in the ways that children are brought up. Like you said, like when they're experiencing like like rape regularly, they're gonna have a very negative like insight on the world or on men in general, and it like really impacts on their mental health because as like even like if in the times where like women were treated way less than they are now, obviously with like current like we've made a lot of progress, but in the past they would have have trouble raising children. For example, like widows, they wouldn't have a husband to look after them, and they'd have to kind of raise a child in conditions where like women should be working, or women should only stick to particular housekeeping jobs, and that they shouldn't be getting education. So in cases where like men like in their families have died, or if they've moved on from the family, they've left the family, there was no like support system from like the society to help these women.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's same for like men. Say, like most people focus on gender discrimination among like women and girls, but no one really focuses on the gender discrimination that the men get of, being pressured to be a certain way, and take the pressure of being to be the breadwinner, and always go to work. And maybe that's not what the male wants in a family. Maybe he wants to stay at home, like cook. And I know that like, say I know a person that really likes to cook and clean, and he likes to do like household chores. And I feel like in an Asian society, that's kind of frowned upon and laughed upon, because it's a very feminine thing to do when we're taught that, you know, females in the family only cook and clean and do laundry. And I feel like now that the gender like norms are changing and we're more diverse, uh, that doesn't have to be the case anymore. So I feel like gender discrimination among males are very not given importance. And I feel like a lot of people just look at the female discrimination rather than also giving, recognition to what males get. So yeah.
Also, there is the fact that like we've discussed, that there's a lot of the feminist ideas giving women more opportunities to like work, get out the house and work more. And like in traditional societies, it was always the men that earned the money for the house. But when
Mm-hmm.
there's but as of right now, let's say, and children were given very like limited opportunities or like finances, because there's only one person working in the family. However, right now
Yeah.
there's both parents working, and this could like, it gives the child a better like, it just makes the family financially more stable. It gives the child more opportunities for education, recreation, or whatever they want exactly. So children are more benefiting more of like dual burden worker, when no, sorry, yeah, conjugal roles in the family, when both parents are working, and it's just helpful for the children as well. It makes them develop better or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that completely. And I think if we were to link this to the new right perspective, which is pretty similar to the functionalist perspective, where there are government policies in various countries that actually support family diversity, and that reflects back on society, because we as a society sometimes we tend to look up to the government and laws, and we have to like respect those rules and regulations. So if we have policies that accept family diversity, then slowly and steadily society will also change over time.
Yeah. Um, sorry, I wanted to say something. Yeah. And I think that like even with manners, like basic manners in a household, like sitting in a way and talking in a way, like males are usually, I don't know whether it's like this in other households, but in my household, like males, like say for me, um like for a girl, it's not good to be loud or to sit in a certain way that males do. So it's kind of like, even with the basic things, um, there's like a small amount of discrimination, and we're taught to be very feminine, and that's what a girl is. Like if a girl is kind of like a tomboy in the Asian society, it's kind of looked down upon, and it's like quite unusual to see a girl, very in a very boyish way. So I think it's even like with the really, really small things that we're taught, that that's where like discrimination of in the family kind of starts, and like gender inequality.
Anne
So
Oakley, Anne Oakley, a British sociologist, said that conventional families worked as a form of social control. People were expected to live in these families and control them by making it hard to live alternative lives. And like I said, like we all said earlier, women were more like enforced into their traditional roles and stuff. And like if a woman were to get older, they were asked to get married or have children, and like it's all changed now. I think most societies are more open to the idea and stuff. This gives children more opportunities, more like even younger girls, they grow up to have bigger dreams, because as young when women back then, women had get like little girls had like very narrow dreams, like to just grow up, get married, and settle over there. But now women, due to education and different opportunities, they can branch out, testify their career paths and stuff, and that's just better for most children, I think, to have dreams and stuff.
Yeah. I think another point like I've noticed is like at least something I've noticed is that with the like unfortunately like with the rise of like you know to different types of families like cohabitation, like children that are born out of cohabitation or even same-sex families, they're they have like kind of refused the idea of child-centeredness because of these like conjugal roles. Like obviously if the parents are main priority is only to just raise the children through like having financial stability, and when the mom's at home, there's like it's more likely that they will be more child-centered because they think like everything they're doing is for the child. With like the rise of like dual roles and everyone working together, I think it also like shows the impact that people had on like child-centeredness, because it like kind of removed the like emotional side of having a family, and it was more so like most sociologists would say like an institution for socialization, like primary socialization. And so like we've kind of moved away from the idea that only like families are like there just to provide you the basic necessities of education and economic needs, or even like just that they need other things, and that the main priority is not just financial stability.
I mean,
I think conclusively we can all agree that um, gender roles do have a major effect on the growth of a child, not growth, even development. It enhances their social thinking, boundaries, everything, and yeah, also that
Yeah.
women, also that opportunities and stuff have changed so much over the last few decades and stuff, and we are children are growing up to be more open-minded people, you could say.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and it
think
kind
that,
of promotes like socializing with other genders as well, because
yeah.
like we're like from like a younger age taught to like like be friends with girls, or for guys to be friends with guys, but that's also like encouraged, like interacting with other genders outside of your own.
And like
And
even
I
gender
think that,
fluidity is
sorry,
encouraged as well.
I think that that our generation would teach our kids to be much more, um, gender equal rather than, what our parents taught us, because they came from a very traditional
Thinking.
upbringing, I think. Whereas we have the media right now that's teaching us a lot of things about how gender doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have a much more better understanding about that all genders are equal.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Yusha. I'll talk about socio, the names you shop from Dubai to Tokyo. Talk about gender affects our whole childhood from beginning to the end. Needs to be understood. Y'all gotta understand. Gender is everything that shapes our lives. Toys with our minds. Sons equals macho, girls equals mellow. Why is it like this? The cycle is endless, but best believe things have changed from childcare to housework. It's all about teamwork. Help us develop, help us grow. But the real question is, do we teach or follow? Children just follow because we're taught to do that, but why is it like this? Where are we getting that? Look at Butler. Gender performativity, she says gender is such a social identity we internalize. Social expectations. Just to conclude, y'all just got schooled. Thank you and goodbye. Yusha out.
Y'all can't handle this.